Let's start seated. Traditional start. Nice to see you guys. So we're just gonna find something that feels supportive and as easy as it can possibly be, and then do the same thing with the breath, finding something that feels supportive and as easy as can be. And we'll just settle into that. Let the potential busyness of the day drift away while we find our breath. And we'll give ourselves 60 more seconds. Just ease in the breath, ease in the spine. And when it feels appropriate, let's utilize an exhale to let our chin come down to our sternum. As that happens, squeeze those shoulders back, and then let's move the head and neck a little bit. And movement here just towards what feels good, what feels beneficial. No limitation or directive as to what that means, just taking care of the neck. And then we'll come back to neutral, lift our head back, our chin back to neutral. And let's take our arms straight up and overhead. And then with the left hand, grab the right wrist and just edge that over. Just looking for that little bit of squeeze and extension. Lateral edge expansion, and then we'll come back to neutral. And we'll do the same thing to the second side. So right hand grabs the left wrist and we just looking for that lateral capacity to expand. And we'll come back to neutral when we feel balanced, and then just take ourselves out into a seated forward fold. Looking here to use that rib cage expansiveness, but to really settle in to the length that's available. Maybe core engagement into extension will be advantageous there. And then eventually we'll walk ourselves back up into seat. And from seat, let's transition to hands and knees, tabletop. So we'll continue this little spinal exploration. Let's exhale out, bring our cat shape into fold, tuck the chin, tuck the tailbone, round out in the back. Think about getting the shoulders involved. And then we'll reverse, inhaling and dropping the belly, lifting the tailbone, lifting the chin. Looking for that full extension. Shoulders involved once again, right? How can we use the shoulders to get into deeper extension? And then let's reverse, exhale out. Middle of the back lifts. Bowing and arching. We're taking breaths here, right? So we're not holding our breath or anything. We're just using particular breaths for the movement portions. Really finding our space. And then inhaling, dropping the belly, lifting the tailbone. Again, shoulders, tailbone, sway, anything that gets more and more depth. That's what we're looking for. And then we'll come back to neutral and glide back into child's pose. Child's pose has the potential here to feel a little bit wonky because we've played with the spine, but we haven't done much with the hips. So as you try to settle back into the hips, if they're not typically open, right, it could feel pretty restrictive. And so we may just want to push with the hands to get the hips all the way engaged. And then eventually we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees, tabletop. From hands and knees, tabletop. Toes, curl, seat, lifts, rolling back into that down dog space, thinking about that opportunity for spinal column length as kind of our primary point of awareness. And then let's walk our way forward into fold. We'll inhale into half lift. And exhale back into our fold space. Drift your awareness to your sacrum, and we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Eventually finding our way to mountain, hands coming together at heart center, eyes closed if that feels comfortable, thinking about anterior posterior neutrality, arch activation, so we have the feet really engaged in the shape. And then let's slide our left foot straight back into lunge. Feel the back leg engage and activate in the same way that we had both feet activated in Tadasana. And then let's just slide the hands straight up into crescent. And see if you can get a little bit more depth into that left heel as you do so. And then we'll drop the hands back to heart center and see if there's even more room into that left heel. And then we'll just step to the front of the mat. Once again, thinking about foot activation, arch activation, and strength in this shape. And then we'll slide the right foot back. Really just exploring here. So thinking about weight distribution and foot activation, and then sliding the hands straight up as you do so. See if you can get back into that right heel a little bit more. It's a little anterior hip activator kind of is as a requirement. And then we'll drop the hands back down. And as we do so, can we get even deeper into that right heel? And then we'll step to the front of the mat. Sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale through forward fold. Let your head go. Let your belt line hug back so we get that anterior hip crease retraction. Feel the feet still strong and active, and let's plant our hands. We'll walk our way back into down dog. And the full length of the spine, the full space available, then hands and knees tabletop, flipping the tops of the feet and back into child's pose again. Hips should be a little bit more free this time. Hopefully the shape feels a little bit more integrated this time. You can still use that hand pressure to press the hips back to get more depth into the shape, but only if that is feeling beneficial. Really thinking about those adjustments that add benefit. We'll give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. And then when you're ready, press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. Curl our toes, lift our seat, find our way back in a down dog. From the finger mounds to the tailbone, think about being as engaged as is possible. That may mean core engagement. That may mean that the hip crease, again, is pulling and retracting back. But really think about being strong into the back of this shape. And then let's walk our way forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide your left foot straight back into lunge. Ground your left heel and walk your hands to the middle of this shape. So we have asymmetrical foot alignment here to start with. You can keep that front knee bent if that feels appropriate. You can also go towards triangle leg alignment if that feels right for you as well. And the left knee can also be bent. Let's just inhale into half lift. And then exhale back into this funky little fold. And then we'll bring the right foot around to mirror the left. So now we're just in a traditional wide fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Drift your awareness to your sacrum, and let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Little bit different reaction in the spine when we do this. Think about the hip staying level, and then let's bring our belly button to kind of that midpoint of the left thigh. And then we're going to fold right down that leg. And then walk to the midline. Inhale into half lift. And exhale back into fold. Let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. And then pretty funky transition here. So a lot of movement, especially this early in class, but we can do it. We're going to take the front foot and we'll roll that to the front of the mat, and we'll take the back foot and do the same, and then we'll find a way to crescent. That was a horrible way to describe that. We're going to transition from the shapes we are into crescent. How about that? And right into crescent. And just note that there may be some desire to stay towards that open side. Think about that front hip really extending out and just get that full extension. And then let's drop the hands to the mat and we'll step forward. Into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide your right foot straight back. Left foot stays pointed towards the front, the right heel grounds, and we'll walk ourselves to the middle. Then inhale into half lift. It's a nice little funky external hip opener. Exhale back into fold. Take the left foot and let it mirror the right. Inhale into half lift and settle back into your fold. Awareness drifts to the sacrum. Let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming into this top space, turning our belly button towards the right thigh, and we're just gonna roll or fold straight down that right leg. You're really just settling into that space. Little asymmetry, but try to keep your weight active so that back foot is holding energy and weight as much as the front foot or the off fold foot. And then we'll come back to neutral, roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. And again, this kind of like three-part movement, right? So both feet are turning, front knee is bending, and we're extending up into crescent. And then floating the hands to the mat and stepping forward into fold. Now we should have some pretty good space in this fold, especially around that glute hip area. Really think about taking that as you sink the seat back into this modified chair entry, right? So look for a 90-degree bend-ish in the knees, and then the torso is kind of just resting on the thighs. But we have this really deep approximation of our chair here. Lift your head towards the front of the rim, and then sweep the arms out in that same direction. And we'll rise all the way through Tadasana. Hands come together at heart center. Let your eyes close and just be really at ease in mountain. Eyes closed if it feels comfortable, right? Really feeling the foundation, the trunk engagement, the glute engagement, the spinal alignment. Thinking about the placement of your shoulders, your shoulder blades. And then let your eyes softly open. Extend your arms out in front of you, zombie style, palms down. And so we're going to keep this alignment as we forward fold. So better way to show this, spine stays neutral. That same 90-degree bend at the shoulders. And then at the bottom, or at the half fold point, right? Take the shoulders and just relax so that you get that upper back spacing. And then release all the way through the fold. And let that upper back spacing get encapsulated into this fold space. Yes, beautiful, Skip. Let's plant our hands. We'll walk our way back into down dog. Remember to shift the weight all the way back into the hips here. Drive that energy back into the hips. And then take that same level of energy and let's transition it forward into plank. And then lower ourselves to our belly. Flipping the tops of the feet, flexing the quads so the kneecaps are lifted. Hands stay as they are. Lift your forehead maybe a half inch. And then as the forehead gets elevated, pull back from the fingerprints towards your armpit crease and drive that upper torso and head and neck out towards the front of your room. And let's just hold that for a few rounds of breath. Fingertips pulling back, torso extending towards the front of the room. And then eventually we'll relax and slide our hands underneath our forehead for crocodile pose. And so there's this ancient farming community. They've been accessing and utilizing this same river source for as long as anyone has records of. And for nearly that long, the water source has been depleting, slowly at first, but now it's become a lot more extreme. The water in this season, due to a drought, is just a trickle. And so all the village elders get together and all the farmers get together and they decide that they're going to have to cut back. The eldest farmer gets up and he says, if we don't do what we need to do, then we shouldn't expect what we want. And so everyone's going to get 1 day of water per month. And there's roughly 30 farmers, and they all agree that 1 day of water will be what they get, and they'll have to use that because that's all there is. Last 15 seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's slide our hands back underneath our shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, curl your toes, lift your seat, and find your way back into down dog. Again, think about that energetic connection that your hands have with the mat, and let that energy ride all the way up the spine and into the sacrum so that you are as strong as you can be foundationally here. Yes, beautiful. And then let's walk our way forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Roll or sweep your way up into mountain. And then with the hands at heart center, let's step our left foot back into lunge. Left heel grounds. We'll roll the legs into warrior two. So we craft that space and then just blossom the arms out to follow. Think about that width and expansiveness across the shoulder girdle. And then let's bend our right elbow and bring that right forearm down onto the right thigh. Left hand can reach straight up or straight forward, whatever feels like it's giving you the most space here. Either option is wonderful. The space is the only thing that determines the right thing. And then left oblique's going to help pull us back up into warrior two. And as we come back up, we're going to slide back into that right hamstring. Now let's bend our right elbow again. There we go. So the reason that we're bending this elbow is so that we're not worried about touching the floor. So we're going to go towards triangle, but only so much that we can feel really supported, right? It's super easy to like get into something where our arm is balancing us or supporting us. But if we can hold this shape without the need for the arm, then we're probably in a really safe spot. And then let's come back up. We'll bend that front knee. Settle into a little bit of extra depth there because it's available. And then left heel spins up. Crescent. Hands drop to heart center. And we return to this off-kilter, asymmetrical Mountain. When you're ready, when it feels right, right foot's going to slide back. Right heel grounds. We roll to warrior two, torso, legs, but hands stay just for a breath, just so we can set the foundation. Then we blossom out. And we want to feel that width. Left elbow bends, left forearm to the thigh. Again, you can reach straight up or you can reach straight forward. Either placement is wonderful. Whichever is giving you the best expansiveness for the breath. And then right oblique pulls us back up and we straighten into that front leg. And then left elbow bends. And we'll take ourselves into this triangle-ish shape, right? Not using the arm, but finding our way into stability. When you feel like you've had enough or you're balanced, we'll come back up. Warrior two for the extra depth. Right heel spins up for crescent, hands drop to heart center as we return to a much more balanced version of mountain. Let's take those arms straight out towards that zombie alignment again. Thinking about this 90-degree torso to shoulder bend and keeping that as we come to half fold. And this time, instead of relaxing the shoulders, squeeze the elbows out towards this little wilted cactus. And think about drawing the breath into that extra space. And then exhale, release the hands, release the torso, find your way into that fold space. Looking for the thoracic shelf to just kind of ease as we give back. And then let's plant our hands. We'll walk our way back into down dog. Same level of strength from the hands all the way to the tailbone. As rooted and connected as we can be here, we'll come down to hands and knees, tabletop, flip the tops of the feet. And sink back into child's pose. Very slow, fluid breath here. And so because the water in the river is so low, all the farmers realize that the head gates that take the irrigation out of the river are going to be inoperable. The water's not going to access them. They're going to have to redo every single one of them. And so every single farmer except one gets together and they do all the stuff. They dig these trenches and they reform the gates. And everyone's kind of asking where the one farmer is. And one of the village elders comes over. He's like, if he's not here, this doesn't make any sense. Doesn't he want water? Meanwhile, he's back at his farm. He's heard about this magic well at the edge of his property. And he's way back clearing out brush. And sure enough, he comes across a well. He drops a rope and a bucket down in. It doesn't come up with anything, but it doesn't hit the bottom. So he ties an even longer rope onto the bucket, chucks it down. It doesn't hit the bottom. He ties the two ropes together, chucks it down, and finally he pulls up water. And he thinks to himself how lucky he is to have this magic well. While all the other suckers are digging a trench for a trickle of water. We'll give ourselves just 15 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll pull ourselves forward we'll slide the hands underneath the shoulders, press ourselves up, No, we're not. We're coming forward to hands and knees tabletop. How about that? Exhale out, push down into your hands and round the middle of your back. So we craft a cat shape again. And try here to utilize each cycle of breath to get more and more arched into the middle of the shape. And then curl your toes underneath you so that the toe mounds can be active. And what we're going to do is we're going to rise straight up, not into a down dog, but into an approximation of a down dog and cat, so that we're just bowed in the middle of our back, as rounded as can be here. Really thinking about that rounding shape. And if you look at what happened to me, right? It's very hard to round in this. What ends up happening is the hips end up pushing up. So think about really getting up into the back and then drive the weight back into the heels. And as the weight comes back into the heels, the hips receive all of that energy and just allow all of that energy to land in your down dog. And just breathe into that space. Feel across the shoulder girdle and how, as the weight transferred back, what's gone on in the shoulder girdle, how that has to activate to hold that hip energy. And let's just give ourselves 15 more seconds here, which is a lot of time in this deep of a down dog with this much activity. And then we'll walk ourselves forward into fold. Inhale into half lift and exhale back into fold. Think about the angle of your fold, like you're trying to craft as little a space as possible between your torso and your thighs. And then we're going to drift our awareness back to the midpoint of our back, the same point that we tried to emphasize when we popped up our cat shape, and the same point when we tried to get that cat shape down dog space. So think about the middle of the back, and we're going to round that out as we lift up. Once you get to the point where the middle of the back feels as rounded as possible, then we're going to take the arms out towards cactus. And note as the arms come out, how that changes that musculature. And then continue to roll up until you feel that again, and then lift your elbows a little higher. And then you'll have more space. You'll continue to roll up, elbows a little higher. Continue to roll up, elbows a little higher. And then we're all the way up. In the mountain, hands come together at heart center. Hold just a little bit of extra core engagement so you keep all of that space in the spine. And then let's interlace our fingers and push our hands straight out in front of us at shoulder height. Tailbone's going to go back towards chair. And keep pushing those arms out in front of you. Again, really working that middle of the back space here. You want to feel that middle of the back energy. And then keep the hands together as you transition to fold. And try to tuck the hands through your legs. Upper and middle back space. Relax. And feel the hamstring release into from all of that back space. Drift your awareness to your sacrum, and now a traditional roll up. And note if there's any variance in how your traditional roll up feels here. All the way into our top space, hands come together. At heart center. Let's take our left foot, slide it straight back into lunge, ground your left heel, and take your right forearm onto your right thigh one more time. Left hand can extend up or forward again. Either one works. This time we're going to backdoor our way into triangle. but we want to set and hold the torso strength. So think about core strength and then slide back into your hamstring, and you can drop the hand if it feels appropriate. Same activity here, or same lengthening of the middle of the back. We're coming at it from a very different way though. Left oblique pulls you up. Settle in. Left heel spins up. We're back into crescent. Drop the hands to heart center, and we'll step to the front of our mat. Right heel slides back. Right heel grounds. Left forearm to left thigh. Right arm extends either up or forward. And so we want to set the shape first. Squeeze the core, so you're anchoring the physicality with the core squeeze, and then we slide back into the hamstring. And as you release off of that hold, because we have that core tension locking us, we expand away from the core, and we can access that mid-back from triangle, which is just a fascinating way to get to mid-back. Right oblique pulls us up. Right heel spins up to crescent. Hands drop to heart center. We'll step to the front of the mat. Sink the feet back into your chair. And bring your torso to your thighs. Release the hands straight down to the mat. Keep your head active so that you're gazing straight down, but you have a neutral cervical spine. So not letting the head fall, but keeping that length. And then keep pushing or falling back towards tailbone length. And then trying to feel your breath into your thighs here. Really filling the lung space, the belly space into the thighs, so that we feel or craft that pressure through our breath at our mid-back point. Plant the hands and we'll walk back into down dog. I think this is going to be your last down dog. Really, really, really have to work to get the middle of the body to expand here. Because that back musculature is so fatigued, you want to just collapse in at that diaphragm point. So like you're bowing in, but hug back, lift the hips and energize into the hands until you feel that mid-back musculature one last time. And then let's come down to hands and knees, flip the tops of the feet, and we'll sink back into child's pose. Really nice work. I like child's pose. That's why we've done this, a couple of elongated child's pose. I like child's pose when we go mid-back because you can use the thighs as the prop to release into and really get sensation. So see if you can feel, once again, kind of like when we were in chair, this time with a little bit less effort, how the breath impacts and how the thighs impact that curvature of the spine and the soft tissue around it. And we'll just give ourselves 30 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees, tabletop, and extend our legs straight out in front of us. The legs extend. Follow them forward into a fold. likely that we have a little bit of sensation in the back, but if the hamstrings are preventing that, or if you're only feeling hamstring limitation, bend the knees a little bit so you can get access to the back. And let's just relax in here for a moment or two, really trying to let go into this space. Last 30 seconds. When you're ready, we'll walk back up into seat or staff and then lower ourselves onto our spine for our moment of appreciation. And since we were so back centric, it's likely that we have a lot of appreciation to do here, right? A lot of sensation. We'll feel into each breath. And so while all the other farmers are grinding away, digging new canals and installing these concrete gates, this old farmer with the magic well is kind of living the cush life. He irrigates from the well and things are growing great. And the other farmers are noticing that he's not around, that he's not doing the work. And they're going up and they're complaining to the elder farmer. And he says, well, one thing is always true, and that is if you don't do the things you're supposed to do, the things will not happen for you. Nobody really gets much comfort out of that or much understanding out of that. But they all go back to grinding away, doing everything they can do to conserve water. And yet at the same time, it's not working. The water level is getting lower and lower by the day, no matter how much usage they cut back. When it feels appropriate, let's bring our knees into a bent position, kneecaps point towards the ceiling, and then the bottoms of the feet will come together and the knees will fall out wide. This does generally craft a pretty significant arch in the low back, right? It's just a shape. When we go into this butterfly shape, there's a compensation for the hip opening, the external hip opening that is lumbar arch. That being said, it might be a little bit less pronounced this evening based upon how much upper stream work we've done. Upstream or downstream, depending on how you view the body. I always constantly debate that. Last 20 seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to neutral, kneecaps point towards the ceiling. To do this, balance the weight across the sacrum, and then let's bring our right ankle across our left thigh. There's a setup for my favorite twist. We're going to do it dynamically first. With an exhale, we'll allow the lateral edge of the left thigh to work down and the bottom edge of the right foot to work down. And then we'll inhale right back to neutral. And we'll just do that a couple more times, exhaling into this very, very deep twist, and then inhaling back into really setting neutral. Just moving at your own pace, with your own breath and with your own depth of rotation. And let's do that 2 more times. And eventually you release the right foot so that it can mirror the left. And now you may feel some asymmetry in the hips. We'll fix that by bringing the left ankle across the right thigh and working in the opposite direction. So lateral edge of the right thigh comes down, bottom of the left foot comes down. We just touch into the depth of this twist, and then we come back to neutral. Really important when you come back to neutral that you feel the reset of the sacrum. Try to make sure that you touch that every time so that it's from balance that we twist. Use your breath as a tool to help increase the movement, the depth of the movement, not the rate of the movement. And then eventually there's going to come a point where you feel like you are balanced left to right. There is no rush to make that true. But when you do feel that, we'll release the left foot to mirror the right and then let both knees fall into a more traditional static twist over towards the left side. And we just settle into that twist there. And when it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to balance. And then let those knees fall over to the second side, the right side. Little static twist, traditional style. So as the growing season goes on, this farmer with this magic well is having this incredible year. Fruits and vegetables are of record size and absolutely pristine in their aesthetic appearance. And every other farmer in the community is suffering a different fate. They are barely able to grow anything. The fruits and vegetables they are able to grow look withered, and withered is maybe the wrong word, but ugly might be an appropriate word in comparison. And so at harvest time, every other farmer in the community sees this farmer with the magic well and these huge, beautiful fruits and vegetables. and they are amazed at what they see. When you feel balanced, when you feel right, bring our knees back to neutral. And then we'll ask ourselves if there's anything we might want, need, or benefit from prior to Shavasana. If there is, we'll offer that to ourselves now. And if you have everything you need, we'll just slip into a shape where we can appreciate Shavasana. So almost like he cannot resist. They ask him how he did it. And he gives in. He says, I have a magic well on my property. And they're all like, no way you have a magic well. And he's like, come, I'll show you. And he leads him out to the edge of his property. And he leads him into the brush he's cleared. And sure enough, there's this well. And everybody's just kind of standing around it in awe. The village elder walks over to the well. He picks up the bucket and he tosses it in. We'll just find some stillness for our version of Shavasana tonight. And so this village elder sees the bucket fall down into the well, and he sees the two ropes tied together. And he hears the bucket falling and falling and falling and eventually splashing down into the water below. He pulls hand over hand the rope back up. He sets the bucket on the edge of the well, dips his finger in, and tastes the water. And he looks at this farmer with the magic well and he says, "This well isn't magic, it's deep. And it's pulling from the same source that feeds our river. You've been stealing water from every one of us all season long." We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes, to our wrists and our ankles, elbows and knees, shoulders and hips. Then when this farmer with this now huge crop in comparison to everyone else goes to market, the entirety of the community turns against him, knowing that he has taken from everyone else. No one will buy a single thing from his stand. Movement throughout the entirety of your body. And that movement will eventually allow us to transition back into a seat. And so, with the community supporting everyone else, even with their ugly fruits and vegetables, this farmer loses everything. And everyone else makes just enough to get by. Once the seat becomes foundational, let's let the eyes close and we'll inhale our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that unless you do the things you're supposed to do, the things you want to happen won't happen for you? And remember that this is true in your objective and your subjective life. And see how that makes a difference in your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being each and every one of you. Namaste. Happy Monday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you. Love the heck out of you. Just a reminder, no class next week because of the holiday, but I hope you have a beautiful week and I will see you soon. Mwah. Heck yeah. See you guys.